Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to the Megyn Kelly Show, and have we got a treat for you today. Joining me now is someone I've been wanting to interview on this program for years. He is one of the sharpest political commentators around, someone who's not afraid to take risks and has been politically incorrect for decades before it was cool. And whether you love him or hate him, you pay attention to him. Joining me today is Bill Maher. He's author of the brand new book that's just out today, What This Comedian Said Will Shock You. He's also host of the long-running show Real Time with Bill Maher on HBO. Don't miss a moment. Subscribe to this show on YouTube and follow me on Insta, Facebook, and X. Can your savings weather an economic storm? Think about what you've put away for the future. Inflation can render cash worthless. Real estate can crash like it did in '08. Economies built on a mountain of debt can fall like a house of cards. There are very few physical assets you can invest in that can stand the test of time. But gold has withstood as a valued form of money. It's why many people are flocking to it now and why Birch Gold is busier than ever. Through a little-known tax loophole, Birch Gold lets you convert a retirement account into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold. And the best part, it doesn't cost you 1 cent out of pocket. To learn more, text MK to 989898 and claim your free info kit on gold. Again, can your IRA or 401k weather an economic storm? If not, consider looking into Birch Gold. Just text MK to 989898 and explore securing your savings today. Bill, welcome.
I must say that book title is a lot funnier when you see it because it's supposed to mock clickbait.
Of course, I got it immediately.
Okay, I know, but I've had book titles that went right over the heads of
This is the tease we used on Fox News for about 2 decades.
Okay.
Without the words comedian. What you hear next will shock you.
Right. Exactly. I thought I would bring it to the book world.
No, I used to joke that once you start talking in teases, you've been in TV too long.
Right. But I had a new rules book out about 15 years ago, and the subtitle was Polite Musings from a Timid Observer, which I thought was hysterically funny, but every disc jockey in America did not get it. They just took it. It's like, okay, no, that was understatement, and it's supposed to be satire, but never mind.
Stay with me.
I'll just do a straight title next time.
So my favorite new rules ever comes from about, I want to say about 15 years ago. And it was from the book. When did that book hit?
There was one out in 2005 and I think 2010. Of course, those are, new rules books. I call them toilet books because you can read them on the toilet. New rules are very different than this book. This book is from the editorials. Now, I really redid all of them. I mean, I could never have done this without the strike. The strike that we had last year gave me the time to do this. But this is much more of a real book. The new rules books were fun, but new rules are short. They're punchy. They can be about anything. They're not always serious. Yeah. It's just they're very random, and you can pick it up on the toilet and read 3 or 4 of them, and that's that. This is a real book. Not that the other ones weren't real books, but
what was I lured into in my previous purchases? Jesus.
No, they were fun, but I feel like this one I'm more proud of than any book I ever did. Oh. Yeah.
So speaking of the toilet, my favorite new rule was stop giving tickets to blind people for not picking up after their dogs. You see, they would, but they can't see shit.
Yeah. Right. That was the new rules book. They're funny and punchy, but this one I think people should treat like the Bible. I think they should put it by their nightstand and read passages each night, and I think it'll help you through your life.
Well, in part, it's a diagnosis of what's going on with us right now. And in part, to me, it picks up on something you said to me shortly before I came on your show after my own cancellation at NBC. And you said, you seem to me kind of like me right now, which is somebody without a political home. And
sure.
I felt that way. And I still feel that way. I mean, I've been a registered independent forever, but I know exactly what you're saying. Just the world's lost its mind. Yeah. And I certainly would never put on somebody's team jersey anymore.
Right, without a team.
Yep.
Right. And you know what? I like it that way because I don't want to be a part of a team. I mean, I would say I caucus with the Democrats more. I definitely think the right wing is much more dangerous. They don't believe in democracy anymore, and they threw their lot in with a sociopath named Donald Trump. So, no, he's not.
No, I just I want to talk about your feelings on Trump.
Yeah, well, there you go.
But this is how, so you and I are very similar. I feel like you're kind of a 4 and I'm a 6 on the ideological scale. We have a lot of overlap, but you're definitely still going to vote Democrat, and I'm definitely going to vote Republican. But there's enough commonality to make us shake our heads yes when the other one speaks a lot.
So you're going to vote for Trump?
I am going to vote for Trump, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can't even understand that. And I understand that Biden is deeply flawed, but he does believe in our way of life. And, I mean, I was the one who was saying from the very beginning when everyone was laughing at me that Donald Trump will never give up power. And he didn't. He still hasn't conceded the last election. I don't know what could possibly be more fundamental to you or anyone than you have to concede elections. And he hasn't conceded the last one. He's plainly not going to concede this one. He now has all of his sycophants around him parroting his party line, which is when they ask them, will you abide by the election results? Yes, if it's a free and fair election, which is another way of saying if we win. You really think this is a place this country should be?
I'm not going to defend the election denialism. I'm not one of those people who believes that.
But what's more important? What kind of country do we have?
How about my daughter not going into a locker room and seeing a man's penis?
That's important too, and
How about young men on college campuses getting due process when they get accused falsely of rape?
Well, I think that's a false equivalency. I think these things
bullshit. What do you mean?
I think these things are important, but you can handle these things through the normal due process of our system. But if we lose the system itself, come on.
But we didn't.
We didn't so far.
He tried it. It failed.
Right. And now he's had 4 years to put in place people who will make it work again. I don't know if there'll be a John Rafsenberger in Georgia, a noble Republican who stood up to him. He thought last time that he could count on someone being just a Republican to do his bidding. And what he found out was that there are a lot of decent people who are Republicans, which is something I'm trying to tell the Democrats all the time. You can hate Trump. You can't hate everybody who likes him. And you certainly can't hate half the country. And Republicans is not a byword for bad people. And a lot of them stood up. I mean, even ones who I don't like very much, Mitt Romney, McConnell, obviously Liz Cheney, Chris Christie. There were Mike Pence. These are what I call as good as it gets Republicans, for the people who don't like Republicans. They full-throatedly said Trump lost that election. No two ways about it. McConnell said it wasn't even a particularly close election.
A lot of people said it. But look, I agree with you that the majority of the Republican Party doesn't believe that. But I do think there's a difference between it was stolen, the nonsense with Dominion voting machines and all that, versus it wasn't fair. And
what wasn't fair?
The election. Don't get me started. What wasn't fair?
Okay. Well, the
How
election.
About the suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop story? Just for one.
Oh, for fuck's sake! Really? Oh, then we're not as alike as you think. That's a stupid non-story. I mean, yes.
Says who? There are polls that show some 10 to 12% of the electorate says they would have changed their mind had they seen it, had they known about it.
It wasn't right. It wasn't right to suppress it, but nobody gives a fuck about Hunter Biden's dick.
Say nobody. You're talking about yourself. I'm telling you, there are data to show people did care. They said they would have changed their vote.
Nobody who was going to vote for Trump anyway, or Biden anyway. I mean,
it wasn't about Hunter Biden's man parts. It was about the scandal of his corruption and his dad's corruption. Bill, I used to think that Hunter Biden was a hot mess and Joe Biden was embarrassed by him but had to deal. Now I really think he was doing Joe Biden's bidding. Joe Biden is the bad guy who sent his drug-addled son out there to collect money. That's what the laptop shows.
And that's more important than what I was bringing up about not abiding by election results, not respecting what always made this country great, the peaceful transference of power.
I don't disagree with you on that. You're not going to get me to say it was a great thing the way Trump behaved.
I don't have to get you to disagree. You're obviously someone who looks at an elephant and a mouse and cannot tell which one is bigger.
I disagree. I think
I know.
That's projection by you, because I look at Joe
that's
Biden.
That's how I see you.
Well, let's talk about.
Why are you telling me this? I mean, this is just typical right-wing talking points. The evil Hunter Biden and the evil Joe Biden. And look, do I like them? No, I don't particularly like them. I think they're very flawed.
Listen.
It's not nearly on the scale.
You're misstating my argument. You're misstating my argument. That Hunter Biden just now on the laptop was brought up as evidence of how the election was not fair. He's not a reason necessarily to not vote for Joe Biden. The reason not to vote for Joe Biden is his policies. You're not woke. He's as woke, or at least his policies are, as they come. The open border bill? How could anybody vote for somebody who keeps this border open with the number of rapes and the number of murders and the numbers of crimes going on with these immigrants?
But again, these are the normal sorts of issues we've always had in this country that should be taken care of through the normal process we've had. You're talking about the difference between I'm talking about the difference between this and something fundamental, which is our democracy. The fact that you have to respect who wins an election, or else you don't have the kind of country we've always had before.
How about...
I mean, I feel like we keep going around the roseberry bush about this, and we're not going to make any progress, so let's stop talking about it. But,
you keep saying sort of I'm nuts because I don't see the difference between the elephant and the mouse, and I'm telling you I identify them differently than you do. Hillary Clinton, of course, is the original election denier. I'm sure you voted for her in 2016.
Well, she's not an election denier.
She absolutely was the OG election denier.
First of all, she came out before the sun had risen to concede the election to Trump.
And then spent the next 4 years saying he was illegitimate. He was an illegitimate president.
Okay, well, first of all, she didn't say he was an illegitimate.
Yes, she did.
You tell me exactly what she said.
She said those exact words repeatedly.
Okay. I mean, she conceded the election. Whether you're interpreting her disappointment at losing it as the same thing as Trump not conceding it, I don't know if that's where you're getting it from. But again, it's a tremendous false equivalency. You could ask Hillary Clinton right now who won that election. She will tell you. Donald Trump won the election.
Now she knows she has to because of what Trump has done.
She came out that night in her dark purple suit and conceded the election.
Correct. And then spent the next 4 years trying to convince us it was not legitimate. I'm just saying, look, it's not the same as Trump. What Trump did was far more severe. I'm not going to deny that, but don't try to tell me that Hillary Clinton wasn't an election denier, and Jamie Raskin, and a whole host of Democrats who are now in prominent positions on Capitol Hill. Doesn't make it great what Trump did, but they don't have clean hands either. But you bypass the immigration question. I mean, like that.
I'm not
a lot
bypassing
of
it. I think it's a disaster.
How would you put this guy back in there for 4 more years to leave the doors open?
And like it was so much better under Trump?
Yes, it was better under Trump. Are you kidding me?
It was somewhat better.
Oh, Bill.
It was somewhat better.
Go look up the immigration rates.
Yeah, I know.
Illegal immigration rates.
I agree.
For 2020, for 19 to 20.
I'm not defending Biden on immigration. I don't understand why it's so difficult in this country to stop people coming through the border. I don't. And I watched that 60 Minutes piece they did on it a couple of months ago, and they had films of people coming through this hole and the border patrol just watching them and basically waving. I don't understand why. I don't understand why this country can't accomplish something like that. It doesn't seem like it's impossible. But so many things in this country.
That's what's so aggravating. We can accomplish it. We can stop what's happening at the southern border. We just won't under Joe Biden. And he keeps pretending like he has no agency on it, but he does have agency. There are a lot of executive orders he could do, just like Trump did. He won't. And you know why. It's because of the people who use the word Latinx who are trying to lecture him that it's not humane to enforce our borders.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The left wing, because they're so afraid always of being called racist, they let that color every issue and very often wind up with terrible policies that wind up not helping people of color.
Don't you think that's what's happening to him on the trans issue, too, which is my big issue that I mentioned off the front?
Well, I think what Joe Biden is a guy who does not want to fight with the left wing of his party. He sees that as, I don't think he understands a lot of what's going on in the left wing. I don't doubt if he heard the word trans before he was president. But that's what he has chosen to do. He does not want to fight with AOC. He thinks that's where the energy in the party is, and he's not completely wrong. So he just kind of goes along with that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's one thing that's not great about him. But again, in this country, maybe gender is not binary, but politics is. You only get two choices.
That's right.
You get Donald Trump, a criminal, election denier who is going to transform this country into an authoritarian place like we've never seen before, or you get Joe Biden with all his flaws.
Also
and
a criminal.
problems. Okay, what is his crime again?
Special counsel Robert Hur said he'd committed felonies, but he wouldn't indict him because he was a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. He couldn't get a conviction in front of a jury.
And what was that crime? That was the
Classified documents all over his basement, his garage, everywhere.
Well, okay, again, a false equivalency. They both had classified documents. Here's the difference. Immediately, Biden, he shouldn't have had them. Immediately, he said, oh, sorry, my bad, and gave them back.
That's why he
Trump
didn't get
said,
charged with obstruction. But Trump has two classified documents, pieces to his case. One is you had them, and the second is you obstructed justice when we demanded them back. So, okay, against Biden, you don't get charged with obstruction. But number one, where's the classified documents charge against him? He's also a felon.
You got your story. You know, I look. If you see it that way, that's what I have to deal with.
You're asking me why I see it differently than you do. The contest between the two of them, and I'm telling you.
It's not convincing.
Oh, it's fair enough.
I mean, they both should not have had classified documents. One by the toilet, one by his Corvette. Okay.
One. Multiple, many.
No,
many
I'm talking about one
documents.
person.
Okay.
One of them.
Okay.
Trump,
copy. Right.
One Trump, one Biden. They both did that. The difference is Goofus and Gallant. Goofus said, anything I touch is mine forever. Go fish. And the other one said, oh, yeah, my bad. And I'll immediately return them.
That's very funny. You're taking me back to my childhood with that reference. But why can't the difference be one actually had the ability to declassify documents and keep them because he'd been the president, and one didn't because he should have been looking at documents only in a skiff while a sitting U.S. senator, and clearly he stole classified documents that he wasn't entitled to and never had the ability to declassify them.
Yeah. Maybe you know more about that than I do. I don't remember that part of it, and I always don't trust anything I hear until I vet it from the other side, because everybody sort of has their one-sided view of it, and narrative is more important than truth. I know this is the right-wing narrative. I'm
not like that, Bill. I care about facts. I practiced law for 10 years. I want to get the cases right more than I want to get clicks, and I have a lot of lefties who watch me. So I'm not like that. All I can tell you is those are the facts. And Joe Biden also has behaved in a grossly, grossly extra-constitutional manner. Not only the nonsense of trying to skirt the Supreme Court on the eviction moratoriums and the student loan, quote, debt forgiveness, which he's bragging about skirting them on, but the 4 indictments, which obviously the White House was behind and promoted and wanted. 4 indictments of a former sitting president, which we've made it almost 250 years without doing. If that's not extra legal and weirdly non-normie, I don't know what is.
What are the 4 indictments we're talking about now?
The 2 federal indictments against Trump, and the one in New York and the one in Georgia.
Oh, you're talking about the Trump indictments.
Yeah, I'm saying this administration 100% was behind at least those 2 federal ones, and there's evidence they were behind the other 2, or at least in coordination, though they deny it.
They were behind them. It wasn't Trump committing those crimes?
Do you really think, you don't think that Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton could have been indicted for what they did when he left office with all the furniture?
I don't remember.
If somebody kicked the tires of the Clinton Initiative, the foundation, you don't think they could find something?
I think they did kick those tires a lot. I'm not sure what they found, but I don't think it was much. I don't remember Bill Clinton ever calling
Hillary
up.
Clinton could have been indicted post her.
As I was saying,
run.
I don't remember Bill Clinton calling up as Secretary of State and saying, "I need you to find me 11,000 votes." You don't find that to be a bit of a smoking gun?
I don't. Here's why: because I've listened to the whole phone call. I've listened to the whole phone call. Too. And what he's saying is, I'm only behind by some 100,000, whatever the number was. He said, so I want a recount. And what I want you to start counting, and all I need is this number. So basically, once you get to that number, you can stop counting. Look, I don't want to have to defend Trump on his denialism about the election, because I'm more on your team on that. But I understand why it's not a smoking gun, as you just put it.
Okay, well, people see things differently.
They do.
Yeah.
So this is why you feel like a man without a party, because your team feels like you do on the Trump stuff. They hate Trump, but they're not with you when it comes to your anti-wokeism. So where does that leave you? Who do you go out to dinner with?
Lots of people. I mean, I feel like more people than ever are on team me, whatever that is, because, they're the normies in the middle who don't want to be ideologically captured by either side. That's who I feel like I speak for. People who are not afraid to call out their own team, if you have a team, or a team that you are more on the side of, when they do stuff that's goofy. And I think they appreciate it a lot.
Yep.
I mean, I notice in my stand-up shows, the audience is kind of half and half, and the liberals will laugh at woke nonsense, and the conservatives will laugh at Trump jokes. Most people in this country, I think, understand that there are deep defects on both sides.
Yeah.
And they just want the extremists who seem to have the megaphone on either side to go away or stop being so powerful. Everybody is like, why can't we just be, common sense? And why can't we just, be the people in the middle? But at the end of the day, no one sort of stands up for that, because it's just so easier to pander to the people who are a team, because those are the people who wind up scaring the other people. I mean, certainly on the left that happens. I've said it many times. The problem with wokeness is nobody ever gets canceled for being too woke. That's how you wind up with men can get pregnant.
Yeah.
Because you can say the most ridiculous thing, and because no one wants to be the one who's called out on Twitter, they'll be like, "Oh, sure, men pregnant."
Sure.
I've always said that. I saw a dude who was glowing today. It's just so ridiculous what you can get away with saying, and just the intimidation factor, and certainly on the right that happens too.
So you don't seem like someone who's ever felt that. Have you managed to escape
Felt
ever
what?
Afraid of blowback from your own side?
Well, I mean, come on, I've been on 31 years. It comes with the territory every week. When people say to me on Saturday, "How'd the show go last night?" I'd say, if I'm not canceled today, it went great. I mean, they're always looking to take you down, and the knives are always out. But, I feel like at this point, after 31 years, if they wind up getting me, okay, I had a pretty good run.
That's right.
And also, I think there's just a lot of people who have my back, and they appreciate what I do, and they appreciate me having that bond with my audience, that I don't pull a punch, and I never will. And it's made me, lose some audience. That's true. I say it in the introduction to the book. I say, I have lost some people, and I don't miss them. Those are the more woke people who think I'm somehow betrayed them, and I didn't. One reason I wrote this book was by going through all the old editorials over the whole span of the show. I wanted to see, have I changed? Or has my politics changed? And I really think it's not mostly me. I mean, the left was very different. Now, of course, the right got way worse also. We won't go back into, they don't believe in democracy. We just had that discussion. But that certainly is way worse in my view. But the left, yes, went off the deep end also in their own way. And so what I always tell people who are Democrats and liberals is, you don't have to lecture me about Donald Trump. I'm the one who was sounding the alarm bells before anybody. But I also get why people vote for him. I absolutely do. Because the stuff that, for example, you just said penises in the swimming pool, and the stuff that is threatening to people that comes from the left is so much more in their everyday life. It's not vague. Like, to most people, what's Trump and democracy? It's a vague thought. And Ukraine, that's very far away. Was it impeachable? Who knows? But I know about my kid coming home from school and saying, well, they're telling me I can't tell you.
Yeah.
If I change my sex.
Or saying, as we discussed on your show when I was a guest, suggesting to your perfectly normal son that he might be a girl. At my all-boys school, they kept asking them over and over, raise your hand. Well, where are you on the scale of girl to boy, 0 through 5?
I did an editorial only like 3 weeks ago And I used the word entrapment. I mean, it was about comparing what goes on in the schools with entrapment. I don't think anybody had ever put it that way. But entrapment in the law, I'm sure you know this better than I do, means suggesting someone into a crime.
Yep.
Something they wouldn't have thought of to do anyway. I mean, I used the example of after 9/11, there were a number of cases where law enforcement basically entrapped people who were not really going to be terrorists. The one case I mentioned was the Liberty Seven guys in Liberty City, Miami, a poor section of Miami. And they basically went to them and said, you know, wouldn't it be cool if you blew up the Sears Tower in Chicago and taught the man a lesson? And these guys who didn't even have a gun, probably the only guys in the neighborhood who didn't have a gun, said, yeah, that would be pretty.
Do this thing.
That would be pretty cool. That's entrapment. And I was saying, look, when you constantly talk to little kids about sex and gender and constantly put out the idea that maybe the body you're in is not the correct one, aligning with what's in your mind, that's entrapment. That to me is the same thing. You're suggesting them into something they wouldn't have thought of anyway. Because I promise you, when I was a kid, it never crossed my mind. I never thought, maybe I am a girl. I mean, I thought a lot of, how could I learn how to talk to a girl? But even at that age, we didn't want to talk to a girl. We had not reached puberty yet.
See, this is where it's just so frustrating to me because I looked at that Biden event where he had all the trans people out in front of the White House, and it's like it's a guy with fake breasts showing his naked breasts on cam, like on the White House lawn. It was like National Trans Day of Visibility, which is every day in America now.
Right.
And they're on the White House. It's like, would you have some dignity? Could there be some dignity and decorum? And I realize you could make the dignity argument over on the right too. Trust me, I get it with Trump. But that's why I look at Biden and I'm like, how do we get stuck with this, right? Like why didn't the Democrats replace him? And why did the Republicans renominate Trump? I think they thought he was the strongest candidate, the one who could sort of be the strongest leader and take Biden down. But I look at Biden and I feel like the Democrats really could have made a switcheroo. I know he didn't want to give it up, but they could have made a switcheroo.
I mean, my first show back after the strike ended, which was last September, the first editorial I did was called Ruth Bader Biden. I was the I was the one who coined that phrase. I was saying, if he continues on, if he doesn't get out of the race, he's going to be Ruth Bader Biden. He's going to be the person who hung around too long, destroyed his legacy, and probably the country with it. But he's got to get out now because, too long at the fair. We get it. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a justice the liberals loved, and I'm sure she did some great things and was a pioneer. But her ego would not let her go away. And the story goes, Obama Obama had her to lunch once, like I think in 2013, and was kind of hinting around, hey, wouldn't it be great if you spent a little more time with the grandkids? What do you think, huh? And she didn't take the hint and thought she'd live forever, which was really crazy because she had been through a lot of really serious medical issues. Right. And then, of course, it happened. And then, of course, Mitch McConnell, who would not even give Merrick Garland a hearing, which was, talk about unconstitutional, suddenly, of course, found it in his heart to push through Amy Coney Barrett immediately. So that's what you get for trusting the other side. So I thought he should step down, but apparently that hasn't happened. I would hope the Democrats, some of them would think it's still not too late. You could do it before the convention. I mean, weirder things have happened in American politics, and I don't think anyone would bat an eye that it was out of the ordinary. Right. So what? We don't care. America loves new. I've always suggested that to candidates. I said that about Chris Christie. He should have ran when he was popular in, what was it, 2012?
Yeah. And he said, it's just not my time. But he was hugely popular.
The longer you stay around, the worse you're going to do because they have more to get you on. Obama, they said the same thing. He's only been a senator a couple of years, and he went, good. Right. You don't know that much about me. Great. America likes new.
There was before Chris Christie, before Bridgegate, before Beachgate. All those pictures were just devastating to him. And then all the Trump lapdoggery, which really kind of sunk him.
And Trump came along. I mean, he could have been the guy.
Remember with Trump, he was like, I love him, I hate him, I love him, I hate him. And then, people, when you're like, it's like, and Romney too. And that was another start of like his breakup with the Republican Party, where, he was like blowing with the wind. But yeah, no, I agree. It's not too late. If I were a Democrat, I'd be begging for them to sub in somebody else. Even Kamala might be better at this point, although I doubt it. I don't know, though. Everybody talks about Michelle Obama as the big hope, and she doesn't want to do it.
No, she's doesn't want to do it, and I don't blame her. And they already served. I mean,
so what do you think is going to happen?
Well, I know one thing I can guarantee will happen is that Trump will say he won, whether he won or lost.
I agree with that.
Well, that's not a good thing for America,
no,
is it?
I agree with that.
I think on January 20th, 2025, he'll show up at the White House, whether he's invited or not. And I don't think that's going to be good.
He's gonna bomb in if he lost?
Yes. Bomb is a word I wouldn't even throw around lightly.
Oh, stop it. He's not going to do that.
Right. Like there was never an attack on the Capitol, Megyn.
I hear you. But he's not going to show up at the inauguration.
Like they didn't show up at the Capitol and break windows and knock down doors and kill cops and chase.
They didn't do that.
And they didn't break windows,
they didn't
knock
kill
down
cops.
They of course did.
No, they didn't.
Who did? They died of natural causes that day?
Yeah, nobody died that day.
Cops.
No, not true. Who?
Okay.
Who?
Oh, I don't remember the names.
They didn't. There was Brian Sicknick, who died later after the fact, and the coroner's report did not say it was because of what he had inhaled that day. He said it had possibly accelerated the condition that killed him.
Okay, well, attacked cops. I thought they were the law enforcement people. How did we get to this place? I mean, Trump now says he's going to pardon all those January 6th insurrectionists, because who wants to live in a country where the people who try to overthrow the government are seen as the bad guys, huh?
They weren't insurrectionists, Bill.
They weren't?
They were a bunch of numbskulls.
They chased that's so stupid. They chased duly elected representatives out of the building and wanted to hang the vice president for certifying the election. That's not an insurrection?
The people who engaged in violent acts or actually made threats along those lines are all being prosecuted appropriately. And I've said repeatedly, I hope they get the book thrown at them, and they've had it.
So that's not
You're so upset about the entrapment that happened of the Muslims after 9/11. How about the entrapment that happened to some of those J6 protesters?
Wait. Wait. Let's go back to what I'm upset about with the Muslims.
That we talked about after 9/11 and the feds getting involved, saying, "Don't you want to?"
Yeah.
So entrapment.
They weren't Muslims. They were just guys.
All right. Well, my point is, I'm not going to again. You're making me defend things that
Then you shouldn't.
In part,
that are horrible.
But
then don't defend them. Why defend them?
Because it's more nuanced than you're suggesting. They were not insurrectionists. There was never any possibility that they were. I've heard you refer to it as a coup.
They attempted.
Going to take over the government. It wasn't going to happen. It was a protest.
They broke into
it was
the
a
Capitol.
riot.
They broke into the Capitol.
They opened the doors and let them walk in. Security was waving them in one after the other.
I could show you the footage of them knocking through the gates.
I can show you the footage of many of them being welcomed in by cops, Bill. See, that's the difference between the two of us. I will make a distinction between those who truly behaved badly and those who thought they were having a good time in Statuary Hall.
Yeah, there were some people who just came to meander and wander around. That's true. I've seen the documentary that Alexander Pelosi did on it. It's interesting because a lot of them were just like, oh yeah, it's an interesting place to go, and let's see what happens. There's also footage of people, and there were people who absolutely intended to stop that election. Absolutely. So I don't know what you would call that. Maybe you don't like that word insurrectionist because it got it's too anti-Republican, but that's what it is.
I don't agree with you. I don't think the legal definition of insurrection, they don't meet, and that's why it wasn't actually charged. It's it's a leftist dream to try to make it sound even worse than it was. These leftists who didn't care at all when their people were out in the roads killing cops, actually killing, hurting cops, killing others in the BLM protests, suddenly found their conscience when it happened on J6.
Killing cops is always wrong. Doing it in the service of trying to overthrow the government of the United States is a little bit different.
It
didn't happen because we were
didn't happen.
We were lucky it didn't happen. They tried to make it happen. Attempting to commit a crime is bad. Trump tries to commit crimes all the time, like this one. The fact that he doesn't succeed doesn't make it better. It makes it better for the country. Let's see what happens next time. But, you know, we are not exactly like the detective and the serial killer. Oh, we're a lot more alike than you think. We're actually not that alike, I think.
I think you're right. Yeah. I agree. We see a very different reality. Which is fine. I mean, it
is fine. We have to be able to talk and disagree and still be civil.
I think we're doing a good job.
Yeah,
having a robust discussion.
We're doing as best as we can.
That's right. Let me tell you a story about a guy named Leo Grillo. Leo was on a road trip and came across a Doberman. This dog was severely underweight and clearly in trouble. Leo rescued the dog and named him Delta. But sadly, Delta was just one of many animals that needed help. And this inspired Leo to start Delta Rescue, the largest no-kill, care-for-life animal sanctuary in the world. They've rescued thousands of dogs, cats, and horses from the wilderness, and they provide their animals with shelter, love, safety, a home. April marks 45 years since Leo rescued Delta. Delta Rescue relies solely on contributions. If you want caring for these animals to be part of your legacy, speak with your estate planner because there are tax benefits here too. You can grow your estate while letting your love for animals live well into the future. Check out the estate planning tab on their website to learn more and speak with your advisor. We call a dog a man's best friend for a reason. You can help those who need it most. Visit deltarescue.org today to learn more. That's deltarescue.org. Now, let's talk about universities and Hamas and Israel, because I know you've been, I think, very strong on this issue.
Yes. We won't have to fight anymore.
So how do you, there's always common ground. How do you see, how did we get there, right? Where we've got people in the scarves with the Hezbollah and the Hamas flags chanting at Jews that they can't go to class.
Again, for people who say to me, you make fun of the left more than you used to. Yes, I do. First of all, I'm a comedian, and you're a lot funnier than you used to be. Not intentionally, but you are. Not just pregnant men and identity politics and oversensitivity and victim culture and cancel culture. There's lots of funny stuff. But if I ever needed a reason or a rationale for making the case that the left has changed, it would be this. The fact that they're now marching for the terrorists, really?
Right.
The people who see themselves as the most liberal people in the world, the social justice warriors, are standing with some of the most illiberal people in the world. I mean, I'm going to do my next editorial I'm going to do when I get back to work at my day job is about, look, kids, I know you're looking for a cause, and that's admirable that kids want to have a cause. I got one for you. Women around the world, especially in Muslim-majority countries.
Yes.
Hamas, I mean, really, you're marching for Hamas? Do you know that there are no equal rights for women as regards almost everything you can imagine? Speech, voting, free movement, divorce, property rights, freedom from sexual harassment, freedom from sexual violence. I mean, every possible thing that is a left-wing cause, they violate. But those are the people we want in charge. Those are the people we want to control from the river to the sea. Even the people, of course, under the rule of Hamas hate them. It's a fascist dictatorship.
Yeah.
It's a fascist It's worse. It's a fascist dictatorship with a hard right religious bent. Mm-hmm. It's like the worst of all worlds. Well, and those are your heroes.
That's right. And they're out there. I mean, it's gone beyond. Of course, they were praising, as you know, on TikTok, the bin Laden letter and doing the Muslim call to prayer 5 times a day. These are people who are, probably in Catholic Mass for most of their formative years or Christian Mass. Now they're down on the prayer rug, having absolutely no idea if you move to one of those countries where that's practiced in the Middle East, they're going to mutilate your genitals. You'll say goodbye to sexual pleasure because that's what the people you're praying to push. Just ask Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who I know you know.
Yeah. I saw the funniest meme. It was 2 panels, and the top one, it said, queers for Palestine. because they have that banner.
No, it's ridiculous.
And on the bottom, it's a guy getting thrown out the window, Palestine for queers. Right out the window.
Well, I pulled this clip because it turned out to be a very famous clip. And Sam Harris is in it. Ben Affleck is in it. The one I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. From 2014, I think, yeah.
It went totally viral. And, as usual on a lot of these issues, you were ahead of the curve in sort of identifying, no, there's actually a problem here that we're not acknowledging. I'm going to play it. Watch it.
We have been sold this meme of Islamophobia where every criticism of the doctrine of Islam gets conflated with bigotry toward Muslims as people.
Right.
And that is it's intellectually ridiculous. Even it gets
So hold on, are
racism.
you the person who understands the officially codified doctrine of Islam? You're the interpreter of that, so you can say, well, this is...
I'm actually well educated on this topic.
I'm asking you. So you're saying if I criticize you're saying that Islamophobia is not a real thing. That if you're critical of something...
Well, it's not a real thing when we do it.
Right.
Well, no,
it really isn't.
I'm not denying that certain people are bigoted against Muslims as people.
Right.
And that's a problem.
Big of you.
But
why are you so hostile about this
because it's gross. It's racist.
It's not. But it's so not.
It's like saying those stateless, shifty Jew.
You're not listening
Absolutely
to
not.
what we are saying.
Ben, we have to be able to criticize bad ideas. And
of course we do. No liberal doesn't want to criticize bad ideas.
But Islam at this moment is the motherlode of bad ideas.
Jesus.
So we have.
That was amazing television. Sam Harris was totally right.
Yeah, and it is about ideas. And again, this is one of the big problems with the left today, is they see race in everything. So, nothing ever, and again, as the guy who is trying to be the common sense person in the middle, just speak for the normies, everything, I think, to a lot of people strikes it the way it strikes me, as we start with one thing, this idea over here, and then we're all the way on the other side over here. In this issue, of course, as we were saying over there are people who are bigoted, and that's wrong. And of course, it's great that we got more impatient with racism in this country. That is the appropriate response I think we should have toward racism, being impatient with it. And then it goes all the way to, and no one who is a person of color can ever do anything wrong. That's how you get, we don't talk about China.
Yeah.
North Korea starves its people. China puts the Uyghurs in concentration camps. The president of Burundi was on the front page of the New York Times a month ago saying we should march the gays into football stadiums and kill them for just being gay. Boko Haram captures entire villages of children, but none of these crimes are coming from white people. So crickets. Really, kids? Nothing? No marching against any of this?
You raised this point in the book, too, and I thought it was a really good one, about how when we do our, look back at history, only the whites get excoriated for their bad behavior 200 years ago. It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah, Genghis Khan was pretty rough. Talk about colonizers. I think 11% of certain, was it the whole Earth, or maybe it's just Asia?
I think it's the Earth. Like a descendant?
Descendants from Genghis Khan, because he colonized a lot of vaginas. Look, it was a different era. There's a couple of really funny editorials, essays in that book about time. And the idea that the woke have this crazy idea that, people who lived 500 years ago really should have known better.
Yeah.
They have this magic moral time machine where they imagine what they would be doing in 1758, and it's always better than what
And it wouldn't have been using the term master bedroom.
No. That's another thing, yes.
Right?
And again, that's another point I'm always trying to make, is that the difference between old school liberals like me and the woke is things like that. People, I think, have this idea that wokeness is an extension of liberalism, and it very often is something that goes so far, it actually turns around and becomes the opposite.
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah. The thing that you just mentioned about master bedroom or, blacklist, or these terms.
Rule of thumb.
JIP, reservation, I guess we're not supposed to say because it, insulting to the Indians. What are you supposed to say when you go to a restaurant?
There's something wrong with picnic, too. We're not allowed to say picnic anymore. I can't remember why.
We have a, we're supposed to eat here.
Right.
It's just So again, wokeness seems a lot about canceling people, catching people at something, renaming stuff. Liberalism was at least about trying to fix things. It was about trying to lift people up, the people who had been forgotten, genuinely, and there are many of them, and downtrodden. These are the people we wanted to lift up. That's different than just pointing fingers and saying, I'm more pure than you are, and I think I can prove it. You know, you never want to get into a who hates racism the most contest with someone on the woke left. It's like, you know what? I hate it too. Okay? Shouldn't that be enough?
Except I also hate anti-white racism, unlike them. That's the problem.
And things have changed. They also there's a essay in there about progressivophobia, which was Steven Pinker's great term that he coined, that it is a real problem on the left. They do not want to acknowledge progress, which is crazy because it is the product they're selling.
Yeah.
Because somehow in their mind, if you acknowledge progress, then you're not as pure as the other person who says, no, things are still horrible. Well, lots of things are still horrible, and things just objectively are way better. Can we just live in the year we're living in? That's what I'm always saying. Just live in the year we're living in.
Did you see that Biden speech at Morehouse College?
No.
It's a black college, and he went. They gave him an honorary degree. It's where MLK went.
This is when?
Just this past weekend. So they gave him an honorary degree, and he did, gave a speech. And first of all, the fact that they're giving an honorary degree to Joe Biden, who's like, I mean, the list of racist comments that guy has made is as long as Santa's scroll, but okay, fine. So they got him to speak there. They made him feel good about himself. And then, do we have it, you guys? I think we have a bit of a soundbite of him, or we're pulling it over. But it was the most pandering, absurd picture of blacks in America and the present day and America's relation to our black population. It was absolutely disgusting. It was like he was trying to stir up racial hatred right there live, to the point where a couple of the black students turned their backs on him, which was pretty extraordinary. And he does it all the time, right? I'll show you the soundbite as soon as you get it cued. But
well, Democrats,
this is not unusual.
Democrats should be asking themselves, why does Trump each election do better, not worse, with minorities and immigrants? Not worse, better. Did better in 2020 than 2016 and seems to be doing better this time. That's a question Democrats really need to look in the mirror and ask themselves. And with the immigrants, I think I know the answer. I'll save them the trouble. Immigrants don't like it that the left seems to have this unrelenting negativity toward the country that these immigrants work so hard to get here.
Good point.
They really worked hard to get here. And when Trump says shithole, it's a shithole, I think a lot of them are going, yeah, you're fucking right, it's a shithole where I came from. Why do you think I got on the ocean on a raft or walked 1,000 miles? Because I was living in paradise? There are places that are shitty in this world, and the immigrants know it. And you know, it's not corny or conservative to say that to acknowledge that you're lucky if you're living in this country at this moment in history.
Yeah. Well, it was a different message at Morehouse. Here it is. Watch.
You start a college just as George Floyd was murdered, and there was a reckoning on race. It's natural to wonder if democracy you hear about actually works for you. What is democracy? If black men are being killed in the street, what is democracy? You have to be 10 times better than anyone else to get a fair shot. And most of all, what does it mean, as we've heard before, to be a black man who loves his country, even if it doesn't love him back in equal measure? Well, that's my commitment to you, to show you democracy, democracy, democracy is still the way. If black men are being killed in the street, we bear witness. For me, that means to call out the poison of white supremacy, to root out systemic racism. I stood up for George Floyd's family to help create a country. We don't need to have that talk with your son or grandson as they get pulled over.
Oh, joy. That's his vision of life as a black man in America.
Yeah, it's anachronistic.
Right.
Not
See the
that-
one guy popping out from the back. It was almost like he was like, "What'd you just say?"
And it's not that there isn't still racism in this country, of course, and racists. Just as there will always be criminals, there will always be racists, and we should always be mindful of that and do what we can to call it out. But it's a very different country than it was even 10 years ago. And to be telling black students that you have to be 10 times better to get ahead, that's anachronistic. That's not the case. I mean, there are cases also. I mean, they've done studies on this where the same person goes in for a job who's black and white, and the white person does get it more often. They prove that. So that still exists. It's also true that there are places in this country where it's an advantage to be a person of color at this time, or gay, or anything other than white and male and straight. I mean, I'm over 60, white, male, and straight. I better be good at my job.
Yeah,
because they're always trying.
You had a good run.
This is not somebody that they're trying to hire.
It's ridiculous to say that
Right.
you love
But-
the country more than the country loves you back. Like, that's just not true. What kind of a dark message
that
is
certainly
that?
has been true.
Right, but
that
we're not
certainly
living
has-
in the 1940s anymore.
Well, exactly. Now, I'm saying,
Yeah.
can we just live in the year we're living in? Because that doesn't really reflect it. And when they do studies of like young, like under 30 polling, black versus white, the black folks are more optimistic.
Yeah.
It's the white liberals who.
Don't you think this is the wrong message? Yes, factually wrong, but
is.
politically, how do you sell yourself to a group of young black college graduates? Is it by appealing to grievance, making them feel disempowered and like the country hates them? Or is it something that would be empowering and uplifting and something great
Well,
about
also-
them and America?
It's also not. I mean, they know better than anybody the country they're actually living in. I mean, to pretend that, as I think he was saying there, the talk, which it refers to being
Cops.
pulled over in
Yep.
cops. I mean, are there racist cops? Of course, there will always be racist somebodies somewhere. I mean, if you do polling, I think they've done it. People are not accurate in their assessment of how many people get killed by the cops
God,
or
no.
shot by the cops.
Nowhere near.
I think about 1,000 people. No, it's either shot or killed. I think it's just shot. I think about 1,000 people get shot by the cops a year in this country. Now, in a country of 340 million people, a lot of whom are nuts and a lot of whom have guns, is that a lot? I don't know.
It was when that whole thing went down in 2019, I think it was. It was 19 or 18, but I think it was 19, right before George Floyd. I think it was 10 million arrests. And of all of those in the country, between 12 and 15 involved the shooting of unarmed black men. Not 12 and 1,500, 12 to 15, depending on how you interpret unarmed. Some of the people who got shot by the cops had like commandeered a car and tried to run down the police, and they'd be counted as unarmed. But that's out of 10 million arrests, 12 to 15 in the year preceding George Floyd. But the way he's talking, right? And by the way, the talk, didn't your parents have the talk with you? Doesn't everyone, especially a young man, is told,
different.
Comply.
Come on, it's different if you're black. And it has been historically very different if you're black. You can't really, you're really not contending that that's an equivalent. When we were kids,
I think it's absurd to say that not everybody has the talk. We're all afraid when we get pulled over by cops. I'm not worried that I'm going to get shot in the way that I know some black men worry about. But it's absurd to suggest that anybody who resisted arrest, especially a man with a cop who knows the stakes are high when he pulls him over, isn't going to be in danger.
Okay, but I mean, if I got the talk, how old were you when you got the talk? I was 14 in 1970. It's preposterous to contend that in 1970 a white kid needed the talk as much as a black kid in this country.
I think that's fair.
That's okay, great. But also, here's something that he would never say at a place like this or anywhere. But there is a very big problem with young black men being shot and killed, but not by the cops.
Right.
They are the number of young black men compared to young white men who are killed. It's something like 20 times.
Yeah. Not allowed
But
to talk
again,
about it.
they're not being killed by white supremacists. They're being killed by each other.
And we've completely written it off as a society.
Well, to me, that's the most racist thing of all.
Yep.
Is that, and I've always said, where are the leaders of the community to talk about this? I mean, I feel like there's so many people in the black community who are looked up to for good reason. They're exemplars, and I mean, a lot of the most famous celebrities and most admired are African American. I mean, if they made a concerted effort to try to implore the end of this kind of behavior, would it have no effect at all? Because a lot of these shootings, I mean, some of it is the drug war. If we would, my thing about racism is always, could we just be practical? I mean, John McWhorter writes about it better than anybody.
Yep.
You know, schools, families, and the drug war. I mean, that's it. So much of this is performative that we see on the left.
And
That's the stuff that I don't...
McWhorter, Glenn Lowry.
Yes.
Of course, Thomas Sowell, none of whom has a statue of them. They're not heralded. They're not held up as examples.
And they're not invited on MSNBC.
Never.
And they should be, because...
They're kicked off. Or Coleman Hughes.
Coleman Hughes, another one. Yes, exactly. And again, if you just ended the drug war, some of the shooting is that, and some of it is just about really just nonsensical, you know, feuds and beefs, and you insulted me on social media, and then obviously there's too many guns floating around. But it just seems like so tragic and unnecessary that this amount of killing is going on, and that we just seem to, again, ignore it and not talk about it and pretend it's all the cops.
And pretend we're doing something because we're over here saying, you know, this is the way we want you to refer. Capitalize the word B. I feel better,
right?
In black.
I find that
the letter B.
I find that racist.
Credit card rewards like cash back can empower families with extra savings while they deal with the rising price of groceries and gas. But our sponsor, the Electronic Payments Coalition, says some DC politicians are partnering with corporate megastores to take the cash back rewards away from families during skyrocketing inflation. Specifically, they say the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill would take billions from American families, lining corporate pockets instead. Learn more at electronicpaymentscoalition.org and see for yourself if you want to protect credit card rewards, and tell DC politicians to oppose the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill. That's electronicpaymentscoalition.org. Being in debt is like sinking in quicksand. You're trapped. You feel helpless. And the harder you struggle, the deeper in debt you can get. If you are trapped in debt, let me throw you a lifeline. Done with Debt. Done with Debt has created a new strategy with one goal in mind: to get you out of debt quickly and permanently. Done with Debt stands between you and your bill collectors. Then they negotiate a plan to end your debt permanently, without bankruptcy and without loans. They can get you out of debt quickly, and they can put more cash in your pocket monthly. But you need to contact Done with Debt right away, because some debt solutions expire. It's easy to get started. Go to donewithdebt.com and get a free consultation. You have nothing to lose. Talk with one of their experts about a strategy that will end your debt faster and easier than you thought possible. Visit donewithdebt.com. That's donewithdebt.com. I want to ask you a couple things. First of all, I want to ask you about Stormy Daniels. You had her on your show.
Yes.
A few years ago when she was first out with her story. And then, to your credit, you pointed out on your show that her testimony in this trial changed dramatically from then to now. Do you think she's trying to paint herself as a fake Me Too victim now?
That's what it looked like. I don't know if I would use the word dramatically, but it did shift. I mean, she said in the trial, she said it again, kind of the same thing that she said on the show, but she also talked about the incident in ways that she certainly hadn't back when I was interviewing her, that we used all the buzzwords of the Me Too movement, of power imbalance, and I was afraid to leave, and he blocked the door, and I was afraid. And then the thing that was so preposterous, I thought, was, I blacked out.
She lost fingers in her feeling in her fingers and toes, Bill.
Well, I mean, as I said at the time, this is someone who's not unused to having sex with strange people. Not strange that they're people, just that they're strangers to you because she's a porn star. So when you're a porn star, it's like, hi, meet Bob. He's going to fuck you in 2 minutes. Okay, great. Are we ready for wood? Come on, people. We're losing the light. So the idea that she would black out because this was such a traumatic experience was, to me, straining credulity. But, I didn't think they should have gone ahead with this trial to begin with. I mean, first of all, it should have been an election interference trial brought by Merrick Garland. I tore him a new asshole a couple of weeks ago because all these trials are probably not going to come to anything, and they had 4 years to do it. But it wound up being a trial about falsifying business records in state court. And, you know, I don't know, do you think he's going to win it?
I don't think Trump is going to win it because
Really?
because I think it was lost on jury selection. It's New York. It went 87% for Joe Biden.
You think 12 jurors are going to? I mean, it's because
If I had to put money
12,
on it,
all 12 jurors.
here's my thought: they should not vote to convict because he's put on a great case. The defense has put on a great case. Just they really haven't put on much of a case at all, but they've done enough to poke holes in Michael Cohen's testimony to win this case. But I think they lost it on jury selection in the same way OJ was lost on jury selection.
Let me ask you this, Counselor. Michael Cohen did serve prison time for doing this.
No, not for doing this. That's the problem. He served prison time for lying about taxes and his taxi medallion scheme. And then at the last minute, they added on this election interference or campaign finance violation. And he said, sure, I did it. I did that too. But that was never the bulk of the charges that was about to send him into prison with the raids on his house and all that. That was an add-on at the end.
That was not my interpretation of it. I thought he went to jail because he was the fixer in this case.
They're trying to lead you to believe that, Bill. But you trust Andy McCarthy of National Review, for example, a very straight shooter. He hates Trump like you do. He's been pointing this out. So has many other legal. Anyway,
I'll relook at it.
But in your defense, that's sort of how they're setting it up in this trial. And that is what the jury has heard too, what you just said. So that's one of the reasons why I believe they probably will conclude he did it. They're going to say, Cohen, he pleaded guilty to it. Weisselberg, he's in jail. Why is he in jail? And they've been led like with a trail of breadcrumbs, I think, to probably the wrong conclusion. But I do think it'll be reversed.
And how
on appeal.
will it affect the election, if at all?
I don't think
it will either.
Don't you think it's all been baked in at this point?
I do, absolutely. I mean, look, to most people, it's just a sex case. I did an editorial about this. It's in the book also about I saw this movie when it was called Kill Bill, when they did it with Bill Clinton. And people just do not like it when they go after presidents for their sex lives. And the idea that Trump would be fucking a porn star at a golf charity event while his wife was home nursing their newborn is something we just assumed he would be doing because, you know, again, you're the party of family values. So it is, as you say, baked into the cake. The only thing surprising was that
for the record, Trump denies it.
But you don't really believe
well,
it.
I tell you, here's my honest reaction.
You can't tell me you think he didn't fuck Stormy Daniels.
Let me tell you what I think.
Because that's going to really.
Leading up to the trial, I said many times he did it. Let's face it. He denies it for the record, the legal purposes. He denies it. But when I heard her do her, dramatic reenactment of it all, now it's Me Too, no feeling in the fingers. I blacked out. I felt threatened because he was sitting on the bed when I came out of the bathroom and I couldn't get to the door. He was sitting on the bed. That's called leaving the hotel room. We've all done that. Like you just walk around the bed and you walk out the door.
No, I mean,
I started to doubt her story. I started to wonder whether this whole thing was some sort of a shakedown. If I had to put money on it, I'd say they had sex, but I don't believe anything past that.
Well, that's silly. I mean, there's no good people.
You're so pejorative. What do you mean? I've been watching this trial very carefully, and sure. I've been dismissive of your lack of knowledge. This is my opinion based on what I saw and 10 years of cross-examining people. She's a liar.
That doesn't mean he didn't fuck her. Okay, yes, both things are true. I mean, it's like saying, O.J. Simpson, were the police corrupt, or did he kill his wife? Both. Both.
Yep.
I used to say, the cops are so inept they could not frame a guilty man. The cops did a bad job, and he killed his wife.
All right. So what do you?
And Stormy Daniels is a horrible witness, and so is Michael Cohen. There's no good people in this trial, and he fucked her at that golf tournament. That's just who he was. Come on.
Last but not least, Cohen. And you have had some past interactions, right? Did he threaten you? I think when you and Trump had your
No. When Trump sued me for calling, this is
back in
so
the
stupid.
Birthergate
Maureen Dowd wrote about it yesterday in the Times. In 2013, Trump sued me because What was it?
Because
he had
offered $5 million for Obama's birth certificate.
No.
And then you offered $5 million to see proof that he wasn't the child of an orangutan.
Yes, but actually, what he offered, that was one detail I think they got wrong. The $5 million he had offered was for Obama to produce his college records. Because, a black guy in college, that's kind of fishy, huh?
Oh, boy.
So, yes, Donald Trump offered $5 million. So I thought I would offer him $5 million if he could prove. When we showed the picture, he does look exactly like that orangutan. The color of the hair was exactly the same. If you saw the picture, you know what I'm talking about. And so I offered him $5 million. And then they came to court and produced the birth certificate to prove that he was actually not the son of an orangutan. Not that that's even possible. I mean, we are of different species. The definition of a species is you can't have sex with the feminine.
Well, sex, but I mean,
no. I mean, that's
you
why
can't reproduce.
You can't reproduce, but they're not interested in. I mean, jaguars and tigers, they look kind of alike, but they don't fuck each other. But he did fuck Stormy Daniels.
Oh God. All right, Bill Maher, I got to let you go. Any last thoughts on what the solutions are to that? How do we come back together? Are we we're gonna land the plane? The country stays together. We find a way past the harsh partisan bullshit.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, like I say, I think the rubber hits the road next January because if he wins, he wins. He's never going to give up power. You can't really believe that.
I mean, definitely believe he will give up power.
But he didn't last time. You think in 2028 he's going to say, well, 2 terms, that's what the Constitution says, I'm gone. Of course not. He's going to stay on as long as he can. He'll make up some excuse. He doesn't care. He's never read the Constitution. He doesn't care what's in it. It's only about power and who wins. And he will never leave. He's already said many times, I think we deserve a 3rd term because, we were cheated out of the one that he's not serving right now. So he will never give up power. So there's the end of America as we know it. And if Biden wins, again, this country will fall apart because his rabble won't accept it and he won't accept it. I mean, there's no solution except cholesterol.
and watching real time.
Right.
And buying this book. All right, it's called...
It's actually it's the funniest book ever, I think. And lots of people have said the same thing. So I know it sounds like, because we're tussling that it's all serious, but it's actually very funny.
It is very funny.
And I hope people enjoy it. And look, I appreciate you going toe-to-toe because I think that's what people have to do. And it sometimes does get to a point where you get exasperated with each other. But, as I say at the end, America is a family. And the definition of a family is understanding that, you're with people who you may not like, but it doesn't come to violence.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, Bill, you've always been very gracious to me. You've had me on your show a couple times.
I'm a fan. I mean, you're super smart. What we all have to get over is talking with someone who you can be like, oh, I'm so in agreement on this and this and this and this, and on this one I think they're insane.
Yeah.
But we got 4 out of 5.
Yes, honestly, it's like why there shouldn't be a litmus test. Like I love him, except he hates Trump, so I have to hate him. It's like you disagree with him on that. Okay, that's fine. That's how the world goes forward.
But
just accepting.
I would hope. When Trump doesn't relinquish power and this country...
I'm going to play this clip.
And when this country does not resemble the one that we've grown up in, I would hope that you would be able to acknowledge that. And if he does relinquish power or doesn't try to...
then I'm going to play this clip too.
Then I will absolutely on my show say I was wrong and she was right.
All right, either way, I'll have you back and you can take a victory lap, or you have me back and I'll take a victory lap. Either way, we'll make it happen.
Thank you.
Good luck with the book and everything.
I appreciate it.
All the best, Bill. Don't forget, it's called What This Comedian Said.
Good Father's Day present.
You. Yes, you have plenty of time.
Father's Day coming up.
Available now. See you tomorrow.